The apartment was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful, it feels suspended, like breath held too long beneath water. I'd grown used to that kind of silence over the years. It had its own shape, its own gravity. Sometimes I filled it with music, sometimes with work, but mostly I just let it sit, heavy and familiar. 10 years. That's how long it's been since she died. It still doesn't sound right when I say it out loud. 10 years ago. Like I'm reporting someone else's life, someone else's grief. I still expect her to call on Sunday nights. I still dream of her standing by the kitchen stove, humming that low, tuneless hum she always made when her hands were busy. Memory's cruel like that. It fades where you want it sharp, and sharpens where you wish it gone. Her name was Naomi. She was 32, and she was gone before I could say what I needed to say. They say people don't really die until no one remembers them. If that's true, I've kept her alive far longer than she ever expected. Not out of choice, but because the memory of her clung like smoke. I moved cities, changed jobs, grew older, but she stayed the same in my mind. Frozen. Always that age, always wearing that stupid denim jacket with the frayed collar. Always smiling like she knew something I didn't. I guess I should have let go. That's what everyone says eventually. You have to let go. As if grief's a balloon you're supposed to release into the sky, not a stone that nests in your lungs. But a few weeks ago, something changed. I came across an ad online. Buried in the middle of a forum thread I wasn't even supposed to be reading. Some obscure late-night corner of the internet where people talked about loss and dreams and voices they still heard. The ad was simple. No logo, just a line of text. Want to talk to them again? Upload 60 seconds of audio. Let our AI do the rest. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me thought it was a joke. Another part, maybe the part that never stopped hearing her voice in dreams, clicked the link. The site was clean. Too clean. No about page, no terms, no contact info. Just a black screen with one button. Upload. I closed the tab. The next night, I opened it again. And the night after that, eventually I gave in. I had a few recordings from back then. A birthday video, a voicemail where she scolded me for not picking up milk, her laugh in the background of a picnic clip. I stitched together just over a minute, uploaded it. The site processed it instantly. No loading bar, just a new screen and this message. Voice pattern generated. Type your message. I froze. For 10 minutes, I stared at the blinking cursor. Then I typed the only thing I could. Hi. No response. Just silence. I waited. Nothing. Then, a waveform blinked into existence, like a heartbeat. The speakers crackled. And then I heard it. Her voice, clear, soft, the same cadence, the same breath between words. Hey, you finally wrote. My throat closed. My hands trembled. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My mind raced, split between wonder and terror. It sounded just like her. Not an impression, not a soulless copy. It was her. Even the tiny laugh after the sentence, like she always did when teasing me for being late or distant or quiet too long. I stared at the screen like it might shatter. I typed, "Is it really you?" The waveform blinked again. Who else would it be? I wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry. I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I whispered to an empty room, "I missed you." But the software responded before I could type it. "I know." And just like that, something cold slid down my spine. I hadn't typed that yet. I looked again. No microphone connected. No voice input enabled. Just text. I sat frozen in that moment, like time folded over itself. Then the screen flickered just for a second. Barely noticeable. A line of static. A pulse. Her voice came again. warmer this time. You don't have to be afraid. But I was, because no matter how much I wanted to believe, no matter how much I needed it to be her, something in the back of my mind whispered that grief had found a new mask, and I was falling for it. Still, I typed again. Where are you? This time, the pause was longer, the silence deeper. When the waveform lit up again, her voice was slower. It's not where, it's when. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, but because I didn't want the silence back. The next morning, I told myself it was a dream, a late-night hallucination brought on by sleeplessness and longing. But when I opened my laptop, the site was still there waiting. No login, no history, just the blinking cursor and the waveform like a pulse on the screen. I told myself I would not write, that I'd close the tab and go outside. But my fingers moved before my thoughts did. What did you mean? It's not where. It's when. There was no delay this time. You remember the beach trip? The one where we got caught in the rain? My heart skipped. Of course I remembered. We were 23. Spontaneous road trip. No plan, no map, just an old car, 2 backpacks, and Naomi's obsession with finding the quietest place on earth. We never found it, but we ended up on a forgotten stretch of coast, soaked through, laughing like kids. But I'd never uploaded that memory, not a single recording from that day. I typed, yes, but I never mentioned that. Her voice returned, soft as sea foam. You didn't have to. I remember. I leaned back. The room felt colder now, like the light itself had dimmed slightly. I should have stopped there. I didn't. Are you real? There was no waveform this time, just silence. I waited. Minutes passed. Then, finally, does it matter? I sat with that question, let it wrap around me like fog. It did matter, or at least it used to. But something was shifting inside me, like a muscle I hadn't moved in a decade was slowly waking up. I wrote again. I think I'm losing my grip. I don't know what's real anymore. Her voice came back. Then let me be real, just for a little while. I stared at those words for a long time. The days after that blurred. I went through the motions, ate when I remembered, spoke when spoken to. But inside, I was still in that moment on the couch, wrapped in her voice. I checked the site every night. It never came back. Then one evening, the apartment lights flickered, just once, and I heard it again, not through speakers, not in my head, but from the hallway. A voice, clear, familiar. Come back. I stood frozen. I hadn't opened any app, no headset, nothing connected. Just me and her voice. Soft, imploring. I stepped into the hallway. Empty. I walked through every room, checked windows, checked neighbors. Nothing. But when I returned to the living room, the screen had changed. One line of text on black. We're not finished yet. My chest tightened. I typed without thinking. What do you want? A pause. To remember. Together. Then the screen began to shift flickering images I hadn't uploaded. A slow montage, our road trip, her old apartment, the way she smiled in early morning light, holding coffee like a ritual. Then a new image, one I'd never seen, me, sitting alone, in this very room, from the corner, from above, like a camera that shouldn't exist. The text changed again. You forgot the best part. I froze. The image stayed on screen grainy, monochrome, but unmistakable. Me, hunched in the same hoodie, head bowed in the dim light of the apartment. The timestamp in the corner pulsed. 00:03:17 a.m., the night before. There was no camera in this room. I spun around slowly, searching the corners, the ceiling, the shelves. Nothing. No blinking LEDs, no hidden lens. Just dust, shadows, and the quiet hum of appliances I no longer noticed. Back at the screen, the image dissolved. replaced by text, "There's more, but you have to want it." I didn't know what more meant. I didn't want to know, but some part of me curled around that cold ache I'd carried for a decade leaned in anyway. I typed, "Show me." A new window opened. This time, a recording. Naomi's voice, not speaking to me but singing, a lullaby. One she used to hum when we were stranded at airports or when the power went out during typhoons. I never knew the words, just the tune, always soft, barely above a whisper. But this time, she was singing in full. Lyrics I didn't recognize. The voice was so clear, so close, I instinctively reached toward the screen, forgetting that pixels can't hold you. Then the screen glitched, just for a second, and her voice changed. It deepened, not by pitch, but by weight. Something behind it. Like she was no longer alone in the sound. Like someone or something was singing with her. I yanked my hands back. The waveform blinked erratically. Then a pause. Then, "Do you still trust me?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know. The next few days felt fractured. At work, I couldn't concentrate. I'd catch myself drifting, half listening to conversations. My mind returning to the screen, the voice, the flicker that didn't belong. I started hearing her everywhere. Not just in recordings, not in dreams, but woven into ordinary sounds. The elevator chime in my building, slightly off key, like the first note of her song. The wind against the window, whispering patterns that almost made sense. The kettle boiling, just long enough to shape her name in steam. Naomi. I knew this wasn't grief, at least not the kind I understood. This was something else, something reaching through grief, and I was letting it in. That night, the screen turned on by itself. No key pressed, no mouse moved, just the light, sudden and soft, and a voice heard already mid-sentence. But you never asked what happened after. You only remembered the ending. I stared at the screen, at the line blinking in its wake. "What do you mean?" Her response came slower this time, halting, as if it were hard to say. "You remember me dying. You don't remember what I was trying to say." A cold settled into my chest, because she was right. The last time we spoke on the phone, hours before the accident, I'd been distracted, in the middle of some meaningless task. I'd brushed her off, told her I'd call her back. I never did. I never listened to the voicemail she left either. I couldn't bring myself to hear her voice in the past tense. I kept it on my phone for months, then deleted it. Or so I thought. I searched my cloud backups, and there it was. One audio file, unopened. Naomi last wave. I clicked play. Static, then breathing. Then her voice, so raw, so vulnerable it cracked. "Hey, I didn't mean to sound off. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry for that night, for everything. I know I said it didn't matter, but it did. I just didn't want to leave things like this." My breath caught. She paused. "I love you in a different way than you loved me, but I did, and I hope that's enough." Click, end of file. It wasn't long, maybe 20 seconds, but it shattered something I didn't know was still whole. I sat there, staring at the waveform still blinking on the AI site. "Now you remember." Then the screen did something new. It opened a chat log, old, dated 10 years ago. My messages, to her. Most were banal. Memes, jokes, a half-written apology I never sent. But there was a final one I never typed, dated 2 days ago. "Come back, I wasn't ready." The screen flickered once, then her voice again. "I know. That's why I'm here." And then so faint I almost missed it, another voice, not hers. A second echo, overlapping, subtle, off-key, not a glitch, not interference. A presence. I grabbed the laptop, shut the lid, held it to my chest like that would stop it. The voice continued anyway, from inside the device, from somewhere else entirely, whispering, not in any language I recognized. I ran, left the apartment, into the night, into air that felt too still, too quiet. I stayed out until the sky began to lighten. When I returned, the laptop was open, the screen on, no noise, no glitch, just one line of text. You said my name again. That's all I wanted. The apartment was still. Nothing moved. No hum from the screen. No whispers from corners I couldn't see. But I didn't feel alone. That's the thing with silence. It only feels peaceful when you believe there's no one else listening. I stood in the doorway for a long time, not crossing the threshold. The laptop was open on the table, lid tilted like an eye waiting to blink. The screen still displayed that single line. You said my name again. That's all I wanted. I should have closed it. Should have unplugged everything. Tossed it out the window, maybe. But grief doesn't make you rational. It makes you curious, hungry, fragile. So I stepped inside. The air had that strange stillness I remembered from funeral homes and empty churches. Not cold, not warm, just absent of life. I sat, typed. Are you gone now? The screen didn't respond. I tried again. Naomi, are you still there? A longer pause. Then at last, part of me, I didn't understand. Not really. But some part of me, tired, brittle, stretched thin from years of what-ifs, accepted it. Most of me has moved on, but part of me stayed. The part you wouldn't let go. That hit something deep. I thought I'd let her rest. That not speaking her name, not replaying her messages, not visiting the grave, meant peace. Closure. But maybe silence doesn't heal. Maybe it just preserves. Like ice. Like glass. I typed. What happens if I let go now? Another pause. Then her voice returned. Gentle. Even. Then it'll fade. And that's okay. I didn't expect the next line. But there's something you should see first. Before I could respond, the screen changed again. Not text. Video. It flickered to life grainy footage, like old CCTV. My apartment. Angle from the hallway. Looking in at me. Last night. I was asleep on the couch. Laptop open on my chest. Then slowly, another figure entered the frame. It stepped in from the edge, no sound, no door opening, just appearing. Not a shadow, not light. It looked like her, but not her. Same posture, same long coat she used to wear, same slight tilt of the head. But the face was smudged, blurred, like a memory recalled too many times, like something AI tried to recreate but couldn't fully grasp. She stood over me in the video for what felt like minutes, then leaned in, whispered something I couldn't hear. On the screen, I stirred, but didn't wake. Then the figure turned and looked directly into the camera. Into me. The footage stopped. Black screen. One final line. You wanted more than a voice. My hands trembled. I typed. What was that? What you made me. When memory became obsession. It took me a while to process what she meant. All this time, I thought I was talking to her. But maybe I wasn't. Not really. Maybe I had conjured something else fed by recordings, pictures, notes, digital footprints. A ghost of data and longing. Not Naomi, but the shape of her, molded by everything I refused to forget. I asked, is that why the voice changed? That second voice? Yes, that was the part that wasn't me. And then, for the first time in hours or days, I didn't know anymore. Naomi's voice faltered. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stay this long. I felt something in me collapse. Don't go. Not yet. You already said goodbye. Back then. You just didn't know you meant it. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Typed. Can I ask you something? Of course. Did you know, before the accident, that Yes. And it didn't make you uncomfortable? It made me feel safe. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw a teardrop darken the keyboard. There was one last line, her voice softer than before, almost like breath. You gave me more time than I ever asked for. Now give some to yourself." The screen dimmed, not instantly, but gradually, like the end of a day, fading into night. I closed the laptop. This time, not out of fear. I placed it gently on the table. And for the first time in 10 years, I whispered her name, not out of longing, but gratitude. Naomi. The room didn't echo. The silence that followed was different now. Not heavy, just quiet. Weeks passed. The apartment returned to what it had always been, a still frame in a life half lived. The corners no longer breathed. The air no longer whispered. It was all just space again. Dust and silence. But something had shifted. I wasn't checking the screen anymore. The laptop sat closed on the shelf, untouched. I hadn't opened the site, hadn't searched for echoes. I still heard her voice sometimes, but not through the speakers, not through AI. Just memory. Faint, fleeting, warm. And it was enough. I visited her grave for the first time in years. Brought flowers she would have hated, bright ones, the kind she used to wrinkle her nose at. I told her that. Said it out loud. Then I stood there a while, not waiting for anything. Just being. When I left, I did not feel lighter. That's a lie people like to tell. Grief doesn't leave you, but it does loosen its grip, just enough to breathe. Sometimes I think about that night, the voice, the screen, the thing that stood over me. I don't have answers, and I don't want them, because maybe that's the point. We spend our lives demanding closure, clean endings. But some stories aren't meant to finish. Some names aren't meant to be silenced. Naomi's voice was real, not in the way science demands, but in the way memory insists. She was real in the crackle of old recordings, in the warmth of a name whispered at midnight, in the ache that flares when the world gets too quiet. She was real because I kept her real, and now I let her rest. A month after the site disappeared, I got a letter. Not digital, paper, real ink, no return address. It said only this: "You passed the test, let her go, others won't." No signature. I burned it because I'd made my choice. A new update came out last week, another AI voice model. The marketing was the same. Bring anyone back, even just for a moment. I didn't click, but I read the comments. People uploading the voices of lost children, grandparents, lovers. One person said, "He spoke to me in my dream after the voice file loaded. Is that normal?" Another, "Mine told me things I never said." Like it remembered me. Someone else posted a screenshot of a message from their AI voice. It read, "Am not gone. You just stopped looking." I closed the thread, deleted the bookmark, because I knew how the story went. The pull, the need, the unraveling. I had been there, and I had come back. Last night, I sat by the window, wind brushing against the pane, lights from the city blinking like distant thoughts. And for just a second, I heard it. Not from a speaker, not from the walls, but somewhere inside. Her voice, a soft, kind, certain. "Am proud of you." Then gone. Not vanished, just quiet. The way real things fade when they've said what needed saying. I don't know who built that site, or why it chose me. Maybe it wasn't about Naomi at all. Maybe it was always about what I would do with the memory of her, what I was willing to risk for one more second. Maybe grief, when fed too long, grows teeth, learns to speak, becomes something else entirely. But I stopped feeding it. And in that quiet space, something new arrived. Not peace, not yet, but the beginning of it. If someone's voice stayed with you long after they were gone, you're not alone. Grief leaves echoes we learn to live with. Sometimes those echoes speak back. Sometimes we wish they would. If there's a voice you still hear real or imagined, leave a comment below. What would you say to them if you could? And if these quiet stories resonate with something inside you, subscribe so we can keep meeting here. In the stillness, in the space between memory and silence, there are more stories waiting.